You think you've gotten through this part where your son's hair caught on fire trying to blow out a cupcake? No, no, no. This is just the beginning. Hang in there because yeah, it's going to continue on. Embrace the fact that it ain't always going to be Instagram pretty. It shouldn't always be Instagram pretty. It's ugly, it's messy, it's hard. We're figuring things out, and that's life. It's motherhood. That's okay.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Tyke.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
And I think Rob Morrow is in it. Rob Morrow, who was best known at that time for being the lead in Northern Exposure.
Relatively handsome in a kind of ugly way.
I don't know how to answer that. It's kind of how I think of myself.
You're fine. Were you? It's a better question for Gretchen. She's married to you, not me.
Yeah, right.
She must think you're okay.
I think that's also a better question for Gretchen.
Mitch, you've not been given these questions in advance.
I have not.
Who was the 21st president of the United States?
Grover Cleveland.
Wrong. Chester A. Arthur. Who invented peanut butter?
You know what? I have a cactus named Chester Arthur.
Do
I
you
keep
really?
meaning to bring him into the office. It's actually a two-part cactus. One of them is named Chester and the other is named Arthur.
I believe that that's true. Who invented peanut butter?
George Washington Carver.
Darryl Strawberry. Where's Where's Louisiana?
Where is Louisiana? I don't know. Alaska.
Delaware. Who killed JFK?
That I have to say would be
Wrong. What's the fastest way to milk a coconut?
I don't know, Ethan. What is the fastest way to milk a coconut?
There isn't one. Coconut milk is a myth. So that was the quiz that I had written for you. And I'm
Thanks.
glad
That's all the time we have for today.
And we'll see you next week on Northwards. We have fun.
Yes, we do. And why did you ask me those questions?
I don't know. I was up late at night one night a couple weeks ago, and I thought that'd be a fun way to start Northwards because
It was quite the lightning round.
yeah, you're a Jeopardy guy. You're a quiz show guy. You like trivia. I do
am.
too.
You know, and that is the chief regret that I have not been to any of my high school reunions is that I haven't gotten to wear a little badge that says, "Hello, my name is Mitch, two-day Jeopardy champion."
But your 30th is 30th?
Oh, my 40th.
40th?
is 2 years from now.
Your 40th is coming up, so you've got plenty of time to prepare. You can refine your story about Alex Trebek, which I've heard. You said he was quite nice. Which
He was quite nice, yeah.
I didn't believe you.
He was. Why are we telling this story again? He was nice. He was very nice to the contestants, and I obviously didn't have this. I didn't have this perspective because I was not one of the people in the audience.
Right.
But he comes out apparently to warm up the crowd. He came out when he was living and still hosting the show. He would come out to warm up the crowd and just say hello to people. And I was told by the people who were there to support me that he came off as a little arrogant.
That has always been my impression, and it's because of the way he carries himself as a host, or did carry himself as a host. When people would get an answer wrong and he would respond with the correct answer as if he didn't have the questions in front of him, that always made me really mad.
He reassured everybody in the audience, again, so I was told, that he had passed the last 9 contestant tests leading up to that year. And, I don't know.
Well,
maybe
who's going to fact check him?
Well, right. I'll say his memoir was actually kind of interesting. I mean, it wasn't a great work of literature,
Sure.
but it was interesting to get some insight into what his career was about. Because, of course, the guy started as a journalist. And so I would think that going from a career in news, which is rather brief, but still starting as a serious journalist might make one a little bit It might have an inferiority complex when you walk
Yeah.
on to host a game show.
I could see that. And I can also imagine that it would be kind of interesting to hear his perspective as a person whose entire career spanned like several eras of television and people's relationship with it. Because it used to be that like if you wanted to watch Jeopardy, it was like appointment viewing and then you could watch it on streaming. But also like he was doing Jeopardy kind of in that like golden era of television with, Sopranos and followed by Breaking Bad and stuff like that. So it would be interesting to hear like how he like navigated those changes and people's waxing and waning interest in game shows and stuff. He's probably fine. You know who I'd really love to see host Jeopardy, though, is Steve Harvey, where, he's got the questions and he's walking around and anytime someone gives an answer, he just kind of like mouth agape, like stares at the wall, just,
I think you have a Saturday Night Live sketch waiting to happen anyway.
I sent in my writing packet. They said no. Anyway, your 40th high school reunion is coming up.
In 2 years.
In 2 years. And my 20th high school reunion is coming up next year. I did not go to my 10-year high school reunion because at the time...
I think you've told me this story.
Yeah, at the time it was just like, well... I don't know. I'm friends with the people that I'm friends with, and like I've stayed in touch with the folks who I wanted to stay in touch with, and not necessarily out of any kind of animus, but just it was like, well, I see what they're up to on Facebook and MySpace or MySpace.
Wow.
Was I using MySpace at the? No, I don't think I was. Ugh, left a bad taste.
Friendster, come on.
The world would be a much different place if we just had MySpace and nothing else.
LimeWire.
Oh my God. How many home computers did I ruin with downloads from LimeWire? A bunch. So yeah, there was a lot of like when our class president kind of sent out that initial quiz about like, what does everyone want to do for the reunion? And it was like, well, we can get together at this bar or we can get together at this beach. And there was like a lot of infighting. And I think it was a mistake to give people an option in the first place.
An overabundance of democracy does it every time.
Yeah, I think she should have, or she, him, I don't know, should have just been like, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the date. Here's where we're getting together.
We're all going to go to a movie.
We're all,
That's
the best way to reconnect with your old classmates. But a lot of it became like, well, my kids would rather do this and I've got to take them with me because I can't get a sitter, which is its own problem. And then other people were like, I don't want to be around kids. And other people were like, I don't want to have to drive the 10 miles to the Norwood beach. And other people were like, I was planning on driving 1,000 miles to come to this, but now I'm not. So forget it. And then I think total like 10 people showed up at the bar and then
one for every year.
And then there was a lot of name calling on Facebook after the fact. And I was like, yeah,
this is just like high school.
Exactly. 10, is there a huge gap between 18 and 28? I don't know. There's a much bigger gap in maturity and experience between 18 and 38. So maybe my 20th would be much better. I don't know. I'll consider it.
Did you have more hair 20 years ago?
I kind of would be willing to bet that a lot of people who would show up at my 20-year reunion would not recognize me because, I'm bald now. And at the time when I graduated in high school, I had very long hair, like halfway down my back. I obviously did not have all the tattoos that I have now, and I probably weighed like 75 pounds less. But yeah, I wonder what people would think.
Yeah, I feel like maybe I went to, it was either a 5 or 10-year reunion. And yeah, I have been in touch with the people that I'd like to see or be in touch with on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And at the same time, at some level, I think it would be interesting to reconnect with some of them and have like an organic conversation as opposed to the sort of stilted, okay, I posted this, they made a comment, maybe I commented back and that's it. And then like 2 years from now, we'll reconnect over some other random post that somebody makes.
When I was growing up, I feel like I watched like a lot of movies and television shows where like that's the reason that you got together with folks at your high school reunion to be like, look at the job that I had. Like I make $1 million a year. Like I have this awesome car. Look at my beautiful wife. And it was just always like, really? Do people care that much?
Well,
do they? I don't know.
And today you can say you went on far, far from Norwood, Norfolk High School and are now gainfully employed in Canton.
I've traveled the 10 miles. I've done my work.
Hey, speaking of Norwood Norfolk High School
Yes.
and high school reunions, the guest on Norwoods on Northwords today, we'll call it Norwords
Just
today,
for today.
is also a graduate of Norwood Norfolk High School and was just in town for a big reunion. We actually caught up with her in advance of her returning to the North Country. She is
For her 30-year reunion.
for her 30-year reunion, in fact. She is also the author of a new book and a regular commentator on ESPN. Her name is Jenn Hildreth. She lives in the Atlanta area now, and she is a play-by-play commentator for largely women's sports on ESPN, things like women's soccer and basketball and some college sports as well. Her book is called Tough as a Mother, and it really takes on some of the interesting lessons and, things that some well-known women in the sports world have learned about having both a career in and around sports, but also trying to be good moms. So we reached Jenn Hildreth via Zoom. Thanks so much for taking the time.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So I feel like we need to get the awkward part of this out of the way first. Obviously, you have written a book about tough mothers, and I am, and maybe this is the best way to put it, a mild dad. You didn't write this book for me, but for the dads who might pick up the book off their partner's nightstand, what would you hope, and really just anybody, what would you hope people understand about the whole idea for this book?
Yeah, well, Mitch, I'm so glad that you actually were able to pick it up and read some of it because, yes, while this book is obviously tailored to all the moms out there, I think it does provide a really valuable perspective and insight into what is going on in that crazy mind of ours as we are trying to balance all of the things that come along with being a working mom. And even though this book is for all mothers, I would say it does specifically focus on working motherhood. So trying to do that juggle, that dance between career and family and being there for everyone all the time. And I think just sometimes the partners getting an opportunity to get inside our heads and maybe hear it from someone who isn't your own partner can be really validating, both for them and for you. I mean, hopefully you felt that a little bit, but our whole idea was just we wanted to encourage, empower, support all women that if this was a path they wanted to take, if they want to work and have a family, they can do that.
Well, and putting judgment about this aside, or maybe we could be judgmental about it, but forgetting about my gender for a minute, the thing that hit me as I read this is that even in 2025, the things that these pretty amazing women you interview, the things that they're doing as moms, society kind of looks at a dad who might do some of those things and says, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" Like it's a bonus thing they're doing. Do you think is there still an expectation out there that mothers will find a way to do like everything?
I think there is. I think you're right. And I think that is certainly everyone is not like that. My husband has been a really hands-on dad from day one. He has never been babysitting our children. He watches our children as one of the parents, and I could never have done what I've done in my career without him because I travel all the time. I'm on the road. I mean, he's been hands-on from the very beginning. And I do think you're right, though. There is that sense of it's expected still of the female partner of the mom to have both of those duties where it is looked upon as a bonus for the dad, but certainly that is not always the case. And I know lots of relationships are not that way. And in fact, Jessica Mendoza, who is a broadcaster now for ESPN, but played professional softball and for the Olympics, talks about her husband and what a wonderful stay-at-home dad he is and the stigma that he actually had to endure as a stay-at-home dad. When people would ask him what he did and he said, they would say, "Oh, no, but really, what do you do?" But he loves being a stay-at-home dad. So I think one of the other messages of our book is really honestly to each their own. There is no one right path of how to manage all of this. Our hope is to show a bunch of different paths through this lens of women in sports and their experience, and hope that anybody picking up the book can see themselves in there or could find a little bit of inspiration somewhere amongst those stories.
Was there something about right now in your life or in the world around you that makes this an important time for this book?
I think we're seeing more and more women being visible about the struggle. And I think that's important because what you don't want to focus on is you see these great success comeback stories. If you look at the world of sports, right, you see a lot more women coming back to play after having children. That was something heretofore that was not really considered possible. A lot of the athletes themselves would tell you that they just couldn't see a way forward. A lot of women in high business roles, same thing. Kathy Engelbert, WNBA commissioner, was just quoted talking about how she felt she had to leave her high profile job when she had a child because she didn't think she could do both. So I think there is real value in sharing that is hard. It's a struggle. We need better support institutionally with childcare and other maternal protections, both before having the child and after. That's something that our country as a whole, I think, is turning their minds to somewhat and hopefully making some strides forward in. But I think also showing that we all struggle. It's all hard. Even these stories that look like success stories, they are still asking themselves the questions that every other mom does. Can I do this? Can I actually be good at this? Can I be a great mom and be great at what I do? When you see, 12-time Olympic medalists like Dara Torres and Alex Morgan, who's one of the greatest success stories, if you look at the world of women's soccer, come back. She's been very visible. She's just recently retired, but she came back after having her daughter Charlie and showed that she could do both, often had her daughter right there with her before and after games. But I think she also showed it's not easy. And she opens up a little more about that in the book. And I think that was something that was so important to us. We had to show the struggle, not just the success, because the struggle is where we all connect.
Right. I think it was Andrea Brimmer, who it's a name maybe most people won't know, but she talked about, I think it was embracing the slop, right?
Yes. Such a great term. Yeah. Andrea Brimmer is the CMO of Ally Financial. And if you're not familiar with Ally, if you watch women's sports, you've probably heard of them because they have leaned in heavily and made this commitment to investing equally in women's sports as much as they do on men's sports. And when they did that, that was unheard of. That was several years ago now that they've made that commitment and they've stuck by it. And Andrea is herself just such an amazing example. And the story she tells, that was one that actually made my jaw drop to the floor with what she had to endure with a boss back when she was first having children. I'll let you read the book for that one. But yeah, she talks about embracing the slob. The perfection is the imperfection. That's another great quote from one of our other moms, Licia Montano. But embrace the fact that it ain't always going to be Instagram pretty. It shouldn't always be Instagram pretty. It's ugly. It's messy. It's hard. We're figuring things out. And that's life. It's motherhood. That's okay.
Well, and it was, I think it was Jamie Erdahl who actually took to Instagram to explain just how unpretty it was, right?
Yeah, she talked about how scared she was when her daughter was born, I think had the cord wrapped around her neck. And she shared all of her, struggles in that very intimate moment and said she made that decision because she wanted to show other people that, yes, this happens. Yes, it's scary. But yes, we can get through it. And that was just a small snapshot. That could happen to anyone. And I had a good friend who read the book, one of my high school friends who I'm going to see soon at my 30-year high school reunion. Good Lord, that's coming up. But she said, that spoke to me so much because I had that same situation with my child. And that fear that just grips your heart in a moment like that, that continues a lot into motherhood. Not just those scary moments when they're born, but the scary moments of, can I overcome this mom guilt that leaving my baby? Can I do all of this that I want to do with my life and still be a good mom? That same kind of fear exists throughout many of those moments. And we just wanted to try to help people through those dark moments a little bit.
Okay, so you mentioned your 30-year high school reunion. We don't have to go into that, but you are an alum of Norwood, Norfolk.
Yes,
and
go Flash.
How do you think growing up in a place like Norwood shaped your own approach to motherhood? It is really the kind of place where, like, you could grow up figuring that you can do it all because there just aren't that many people around.
Yeah, well, I think a couple of things, but the biggest would be my own mom, Sandra Hildreth, who is a local artist that maybe many of your listeners have heard of. She lives in Saranac Lake and taught high school art for 30 years in Madrid. And my dad obviously is a art professor at SUNY Potsdam, Joe Hildreth. And so there's a lot of learning that I took just from their parenting. And they taught me I could do anything I wanted to do. Truly, they gave me that belief as a young kid. And anybody who knows me probably knows I was a bit full of it for a while because I believed that. I was like, yeah, I can do whatever I want. And but I think the beauty of growing up in a small town was I got to explore all these different sports. I love sports. I'm really competitive. So I got to just go play everything and do everything. It wasn't this, okay, you're going to play club, soccer all year round and get burned out. I mean, I would never survive if I'd grown up where I live now in Atlanta. There's no way. But I loved what I got to do, which was a little bit of everything. And just this belief that you can be whatever you want to be, no matter where you come from. Norwood is a little small, tiny town that most people have never heard of, but people there work hard and they're good people. And I'm so proud to be from there. And I'm even more proud of being the daughter of my parents because I just think that they gave me the foundation I needed to believe in myself.
How did that experience shape? Because I guess your oldest is 18 now, is that right?
Yeah.
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 So how did that experience growing up in Norwood with the parents and the grandparents that you have, how did it shape the mom you became?
Well, I think I tried all my life to be as half a good a mom as my mom was to me, although I always knew I was going to do it in a slightly different way. I mean, my mom worked as a teacher, but she was always there for everything. She didn't have to travel on weekends like I do working in sports broadcasting. So I was always going to carve out a part of my life for myself. I guess I intrinsically felt that, and I think that's a little bit different than what she did. But I also wanted to make sure that my children have felt that I am there for them, however they need me to be, even if I am not physically there as often as we would both like it to be. I take my mom as this example of someone who just loved me and gave me that unconditional love. And that, if anything, I could give to my kids, I hope it's that. And I know they feel that. And I'm so proud of both of them. Yes, 18 heading off to college, my oldest Ashley, and then my youngest Madison is 14. So I also wanted them to see what a working mom looked like, that they could then have that belief that they can do whatever they want to do. And I'm trying to show them that by some of the sacrifices that I've made along the way. Yes, I can't be at as many of their events or concerts sometimes as I would like to be, but if there's a way to get there, I will get there. My mom flew down from upstate New York and came with me to watch my younger daughter Madison in a play this spring. And then we did the 5.5 hour drive to Raleigh, North Carolina to do an NCAA women's basketball game, drove back the next day so that we could do both. And I would never have been able to do that without having somebody else with me. So there's my mom still being the wonderful, supportive mom she's always been. And I just hope I can give my kids the same thing.
Sacrifice seems to be a recurring theme, actually, with just about, I mean, the book is divided into the 9 sections that it is, which I think you or your co-author notes that, it could also be the 9 months of pregnancy.
Right.
But it feels like everything you mentioned, whether it's sacrifice or resilience or vulnerability or moxie or whatever, you can find each of these things in each of the people that you talk with.
Yeah, and we call those our tough mother tenets. And the idea is that we really want readers to be able to see those qualities within themselves. And yes, it was hard to figure out who exactly fit where as we were doing all these interviews over the course of a couple of years and trying to figure out how we wanted to lay out the book and make it work and make it make sense. We wanted to make it easily digestible because moms don't have a ton of time sometimes to just sit down and lose themselves in a book. You can pick it up, read a little bit here, put it down. So that was how we came up with the division of the chapters and the parts in the book. But I think the sacrifice one is interesting because the other question that gets asked a lot and that we talk about a lot with our women in the book is, can you have it all? We're saying yes. However, we're saying you will make some sacrifices, and how big those are and where you sacrifice from is all so personal. And you figure out that journey along the way with your family, your partner, your spouse, whatever it may be, that you figure out where you can cut from and then where you maybe need to lift up a little more. Where do you need to give at this time? Is it do you have to stay home a little more? Do you have to say no to some work and take a step back? Or another time to say, hey, family, look, this is where I've got to put my work on the front burner right now, but no, I'm coming back to you. This book is really about embracing all of those opposites. I mean, toughness and tenderness at the heart of motherhood. That's kind of what we wanted to play off with the title. And I think you see that throughout the book.
Well, motherhood and parenthood, really, I mean, they're a long game. I mean, you're not just talking about parenthood as being from, when your child is 0 to 2.
Yeah, that's a very trying time for sure. But
well,
yeah. I'm still scarred from some of those, no. But I think it was Angela Hucles Mangano, and Angela played for the U.S. national team as a soccer player, did broadcasting with me for many years, and now is general manager of the Houston Dash and the NWSL. And she talked about her mom and how there's a wonderful story in there with her mom who just leaned into her at one point and said, "Honey, motherhood is for life. You think you've gotten through this part where your son's hair caught on fire trying to blow out a cupcake? No, no, no. This is just the beginning. Hang in there because yeah, it's going to continue on through all these different stages, and you just have to, keep believing in yourself and being there for them, trying your best." That sounds so cliche, but I still think it's true.
All right, so I asked an awkward question to start, and I think this one qualifies as maybe even more awkward.
Oh boy. Okay.
Well, maybe not awkward, but I feel weird even asking it, being the guy that I am. But the thing that comes up a lot in this book that I think if you are a dad or somebody who has been away from the early stages of motherhood for a long time might be overlooked. Breastfeeding is a huge, huge issue, and I think people might not appreciate just what a huge issue it is for the people in this book and people who live lives like them.
Yeah, I wondered if that's where you were headed with that feeling of awkwardness. I get it totally. But what's interesting is so when I first had the idea to write this book, it was going to be focused on breastfeeding, specifically on women in sports and breastfeeding.
It's going to be called Milk on the Move, right?
Milk on the Move. That's right. I wrote about it in there somewhere. Because there are just so many. Humility is another one of our tenets. And God, there's plenty of humility-inducing moments, mortifying moments when you're trying to continue breastfeeding your child and travel. And there are so many more wonderful support systems out there now. Mamava, who has all those pods that you see in airports and things like that, sports stadiums, places for women to go in and pump. But those are new to the game, new-ish within the last probably 15 years, I would say. And, there's ways to ship your breast milk now. Milk Stork, we interviewed two of the women who helped create both of those wonderful companies in the book. But yeah, I think part of me was just like, someone needs to know all this crap that I am going through to do this, because you just don't realize, okay, I'm going to my job as a sports broadcaster. I'm going to do this college football game. And yet I'm trying to figure out where in the airport I can find a bathroom with an outlet. And sometimes I can't go in the stall. I just have to sit in the middle of the airport bathroom. And I talk about this in that chapter on humility. And I said, look, this is where I first said, I got to write about this. Something good has to come of this, because people need to know we're crouching under sinks and going in football coaches' offices. And sometimes women like Katie Witham pumping while in a meeting with coaches, which is just, that blows my mind, because there's now pumps that go inside your bra. It's crazy. There's all kinds of new advancements in the breastfeeding world. But I think it's that, again, it's that sharing of the struggle, and you feel so crazy and alone and stressed out while you're doing it, that if you can just tell other people about it and laugh about it a little bit, it makes it a little bit easier to endure. And maybe it does open the eyes of others who aren't having to hook up to that pump and know exactly what that feels like physically and mentally, emotionally, all of it.
Do you think I guess I'd have to ask all the people you interviewed in this book, but in your impressions from talking with them, was this a cathartic experience to be able to talk about these things for them?
Yes, very much so. I think that, and that's where we started to really feel like we were on to something, because if it was that cathartic for these women to talk to us about it, that's exactly what we hoped it could be for women and men reading it as well, who might be struggling or questioning themselves or wondering if they could do it. And I truly do believe that being able to share with others, you feel more supported, even if they're not physically in a group around you, but just to know, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through the things that you're struggling with, but to have that vocalized and put in front of you, and you feel connected to that, I think there's a real power in that. And we did sense that. We had such wonderful conversations with these women. This has been a passion project that I know my co-author Amy and I have just both loved being a part of. And it was a dream of both of ours to be able to write a book like this. And I think we were each other's missing piece as we came together to figure out how to make it happen. And now to our goal really is just continuing to share it because we've gotten wonderful feedback, not only from the women in the book, but some who have read it and reached out to us and said, I felt like this book was written for me. I'm a new mom. I'm struggling. I didn't think I could do it. And this book really helped me through. Oh my gosh, that is what it's all about.
Do you reevaluate your own experiences parenting? I mean, you didn't have this book 18 years ago or 16 years ago or whatever. Do you go back and look at what you did as a young mom through a different lens today?
Absolutely. And I think that I do that every time I do pick up the book. And sometimes I'll pick it up for interviews like this just to refresh myself. Or also listening to the audiobook was actually really fun because I got to narrate my own parts in the audiobook, and my daughters both had parts that they did. So hearing it through other people's voices was actually really cool as well. But yeah, it does. It makes you what I hope people will do, which is what I did, was not doubt yourself or question if you did it right or wrong, but it gave me other ways of thinking about things. And I remember having conversations with my co-author Amy a long time ago, which is when we first started to really connect and bond. And I was doing World Cups for Fox, and she was working at Fox, and we'd meet up, and I'd ask her, gosh, I'm gone for so long, what do I do? And she would share little tips, just something little that she did for her kids. And I would try that. And it worked for me. Or I talked to somebody like Ali Wagner, who I worked with for a long time calling NWSL games, and I watched how she would take her kids with her. And I knew that didn't work very well for me, but it was still really cool to see how she did it, how it helped her and benefited her, and just understand, I think, again, that there are so many different ways to do this. We are not a how-to book. We are not experts. Our goal is to show in some way how you too can get this job of working motherhood done.
Well, and I think earlier in our conversation, you said it wasn't necessarily about success stories, but I think if there are any success stories that come out of the book, it's the parts where you interview the children of some of these people, because almost to a person, they talk with really reverence about how their moms have done.
Yes, and that was something we came up with somewhere along the line when we were talking to a lot of the different moms, and we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great? Because some of the moms even said, "Oh, I'd love for you to talk to my child," and especially if they were older, because then they have that perspective, right? Young children. We have some younger ones in there too. Brooke Wyckoff, who's the head women's basketball coach at Florida State, her daughter's words, and I think she was 10 or 11, 12, maybe somewhere in there when she wrote them. But just talking about how she looked up to her mom and loved her so much. Christy Pierce-Rampone, former U.S. women's soccer player, and her daughters, what they saw and continue to see and how she inspires them. I think the idea is, now look, we're interviewing these kids. They're not dumb. They're going to say nice things about their mom for a book, right? But I still think it's important for moms going through it who have little kids who are probably not always going to be quite so forthcoming with their praise, to be able to hear that this is what you are generating. This is what you're growing inside of them. They are watching what you do. It is not just what you say, but it is what you do and how you do it. And they see that, and it means so much to them. And yeah, I mean, I will always get a little teary-eyed thinking about, my girls and what they said. And it's so meaningful to me. And it is so validating to know that through all the things you are beating yourself up about, because that mom guilt is real, you're doing a pretty darn good job too. As long as you care and you love them and they know that, that is that foundation for everything. And then just to get a little bit of that validation in the words of the kids, I think was really special to add in.
Well, Jenn Hildreth, congratulations on getting one kid off to college and and for putting together a really amazing book. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate getting a chance to chat about it.
Jenn Hildreth is a North Country native, a graduate of Norwood Norfolk High School, and an announcer for ESPN, announcing women's soccer and basketball and some college sports as well. She's also author of the new book, or she's the co-author of the new book, Tough as a Mother, Women in Sports, Working Moms, and the Shared Traits That Empower Us All. We talk with her via Zoom ahead of her return to the North Country for her 30-year high school reunion. Have you seen Grosse Pointe Blank?
Yeah, I love Grosse Pointe Blank.
It's an amazing movie. And,
we talked about LimeWire earlier. The first time I saw it was because I downloaded it illegally.
Oh, wow.
I was in a big John Cusack phase. I think lasted about 4 movies.
I feel like
but-
John Cusack would approve of you downloading it on LimeWire. And something about John Cusack like leads me to believe that he would be totally fine with that.
Yeah, he got his money.
But I think as far as high school reunion movies go, I don't know a lot of other ones, but
That's up there.
a stellar movie, a great soundtrack, and the movie came out the year before, within a year of my 10-year reunion.
Oh,
so,
wow.
like, it was all really fresh for me, too.
Do you think that there were any contract killers in your graduating class?
There are a couple of people that I remember from my graduating class who were not present. I think I did go to my 10-year reunion, but they were not present, and I thought for a time that perhaps that was why.
I want to tell you really quickly about the disaster that was my senior yearbook. Can I do that?
Yeah, of course.
No shade at all to the folks who put together the yearbook. I have no idea who that was, but there were
Gertie.
John and Gertie there were a lot of problems with it. First,
In a high school yearbook? Really?
yeah, I got the impression there was not a lot of teacher oversight.
Oh, I was going to suggest editing.
Well, yes. And not so Norwood, Norfolk Central School, our mascot was the Flyers, which was a pair of running shoes with with wings on it. And so, I was voted Mozart, but Mozart had a T in there in the middle.
You weren't elected most likely to correct your spelling.
No, I was not. And they also go through and they take candid photos of people throughout the year, and they put all those in. But a lot of those were unusable, which they realized after printing, because there was a photo of a kid giving the middle finger to the camera that they included. And then afterward, they were like, "Oh, would you please return your yearbook so we can Sharpie that out?" I swear to God. And everybody was like, "No, I'm not. What are you talking about? I'm not giving my yearbook back." And then they used flames as the colored background of a lot of the senior photos, but then didn't choose a complementary text color. So a lot of the names you just couldn't read because of the flames. And then, Mitch, the cherry on top, the Flyers, because of the font that they chose, became the Tlyers. And that's the story of my senior yearbook.
Ethan? Choose whatever font you want, but do the closing credits for this episode of Northwards.
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. Bill Hanel is our digital guy. Caitlin Kelly handles our social media, and Doyle Dean is our production manager. For more conversations and to support the show, head to ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.
10 years, man!